When people turn to telehealth for weight loss, they're looking for real support. That's why more people are choosing OrderlyMeds.com. Orderly Meds connects you with real doctors and access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide. No guessing, just a more supportive experience, and all shipped directly to your door in discreet packaging. Do your research, ask questions, then visit OrderlyMeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. That's OrderlyMeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In the popular memory of American foreign policy, John F. Kennedy is remembered as one of Israel's great friends. The warm relationship, the shared democratic values. The beginning of the special partnership. The historical record tells a more complicated story. Throughout 1963, the last year of his life, Kennedy was engaged in one of the most tense, most consequential, and most secret confrontations in the history of U.S.-Israeli relations. At its center was a nuclear reactor in the Negev desert, and two leaders who trusted each other considerably less than either publicly admitted. Our history brief today covers some recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This day in history. On April 30th, 1803, the United States completed the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the young nation and opening vast new territories for expansion. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler died by suicide in Berlin as Soviet forces closed in, marking the end of his rule and the collapse of Nazi Germany. Story of the day. The Dimona nuclear complex in southern Israel has been under construction since the late 1950s, built with French assistance in near total secrecy in the middle of the desert. When American intelligence discovered its existence in 1960, the Eisenhower administration demanded an explanation. Israel's initial response was that the site was a textile factory. This was not true. By the time Kennedy took office in January of 1961, American intelligence was increasingly confident that the Dimona was not a research reactor devoted to peaceful purposes, as Israeli officials insisted, but the foundation of a nuclear weapons program. This assessment created a serious problem for Kennedy. He was deeply committed to nuclear non-proliferation, the prevention of the spread of nuclear weapons to new states. He had watched the Soviet Union and China move toward nuclear capability with alarm. The idea of nuclear weapons in the Middle East, in a region already defined by instability, competing nationalism, and recurring wars, was to Kennedy's mind a potential catastrophe. And Israel, his administration's ally, appeared to be building exactly that. Kennedy's relationship with Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion was never warm. The two men met in May of 1961, not at the White House, which Kennedy denied Ben-Gurion as a deliberate signal of displeasure, but at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. Ben-Gurion was then 74 years old, a founding father of the Israeli state, a man who had spent his life securing Jewish survival in a hostile world, and a man who was not remotely prepared to accept American oversight of Israel's most sensitive security decisions. At the hotel meeting, Ben Gurion assured Kennedy that the Dimona was devoted exclusively to peaceful purposes. The CIA's assessment, however, available to Kennedy at the time, suggested otherwise. Kennedy pressed for inspections. Ben Gurion agreed, but to limited visits. The visits that followed were, in the assessment of the scholars who have since examined the documentation, carefully stage managed by the Israeli side, conducted on the Jewish Sabbath when few staff were present, with access to certain areas deliberately restricted, and with the underground reprocessing facility that was the heart of the weapons program concealed entirely. One American official involved in organizing the visits later said that the goal was to find ways not to reach the point of taking action against Israel's nuclear program. The inspections were, in short, just theater. By the spring of 1963, Kennedy's patience had run out. In a series of letters to Ben Gurion and then to his successor, declassified decades later and published by the National Security Archive, Kennedy escalated the demands with a directness that left Israeli officials quite shaken. He insisted on semi annual American inspections of the Dimona with full access to all areas of the facility. He told Ben Gurion explicitly that Washington's commitment to and support of Israel could be seriously jeopardized if it was thought the United States was not being given the full picture. By any diplomatic standard, this was an ultimatum. Israeli officials understood it as one. According to later accounts, some of the Israeli military establishment seriously feared Kennedy might send American airborne troops to Dimona. Ben Gurion's response was a 7-page letter that invoked the Holocaust, argued Israel faced an existential threat unlike any other nation, and then asked for American security guarantees in exchange for compliance. It was a powerful letter. It did not, however, resolve the standoff. Before Kennedy could respond, Ben Gurion resigned as prime minister in June of 1963, citing personal reasons, though the nuclear confrontation with Washington was clearly a contributing factor. Kennedy immediately sent a near identical ultimatum to his successor. The pressure was unrelenting. Kennedy was also navigating the arms question simultaneously. Israel had been requesting American weapons, specifically Hawk surface to air missiles, for years. The Eisenhower administration had refused these, concerned about destabilizing the regional arms balance in the Middle East. Kennedy approved the Hawk missile sales in 1962, the first direct American arms sale to Israel. It was a significant shift in policy, and it demonstrated that Kennedy's relationship with Israel was not simply adversarial. He was applying pressure on the Dimona while extending the security relationship in other areas, a dual approach that reflected the genuine complexity of the bilateral relationship rather than just simple hostility. The arms sale gave him leverage. It also gave Israel something it wanted. The negotiation was, in the sense, genuinely two sided. Kennedy was assassinated in November of 1963. He never received a final resolution to the Dimona standoff. His successor, Lyndon Johnson, was considerably less aggressive in pressing the nuclear issue. The inspections Kennedy had forced continued until 1969, when Richard Nixon ended them entirely, reaching a secret understanding with Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir that the United States would not press Israel to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and would not publicly acknowledge Israel's nuclear capability in exchange for Israel maintaining a policy of nuclear ambiguity. That arrangement, never formally acknowledged, has governed the US Israeli nuclear relationship ever since. Israel built its bombs anyway. The inspections Kennedy had fought so hard to establish had, in the end, been successfully deceived. What the Kennedy Israel standoff reveals is something important about the limits of even the closest alliances. Ben Gurion and Kennedy were not enemies. They shared broadly the same values and the same Cold War orientation. But on the question of Israel nuclear weapons, their interests were simply incompatible. Israel believed its survival required the bomb. Kennedy believed proliferation threatened global stability. Neither man was wrong about his own assessment, and neither was willing to yield to the other. The standoff ended not with resolution but with Kennedy's death, leaving a question that the United States has never fully answered about what it is prepared to demand of its closest allies when the stakes are highest. And it remains, in that sense, one of the most instructive unfinished conversations in modern diplomatic history. The History Brief. Today, on some history news, we're heading to Paris, but not just to visit one of the world's most famous landmarks. This time, you could actually take a piece of it home. According to reporting from the Smithsonian Magazine, a section of the original spiral staircase from the Eiffel Tower is heading to auction, offering collectors a rare chance to own a literal fragment of history. When the tower was completed in 1889 for the World's Fair, visitors didn't ride elevators to the top. Instead, they climbed a dizzying spiral staircase of more than 1,000 steps, winding their way from level to level with only a single guardrail separating them from open air. It was thrilling but also dangerous. By 1983, safety concerns led officials to remove the original staircase connecting the second and third levels, replacing it with modern elevators. But instead of discarding it, they did something unexpected. They cut the staircase into 24 separate sections and then sold them off. Since then, those pieces have been scattered across the world, some ending up in museums and others in private collections, and a few even displayed inside the Eiffel Tower itself. Now, one of these sections, containing 14 original steps, is going up for auction once again. Standing several feet tall and made of riveted iron, the piece once formed part of the narrow, winding path that adventurous visitors used to climb toward the top of the tower. And while estimates for this particular section hover around tens of thousands of dollars, history suggests it could go for far more than that. In past auctions, similar pieces have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, reflecting just how powerful the Eiffel Tower's global appeal remains. But what makes this object so fascinating, it's not just its value, it's kind of what it represents. The Eiffel Tower itself was never meant to last. That's the irony here. When it was first built, it was intended as a temporary structure scheduled to be dismantled about 20 years later. Instead, it became one of the most recognizable landmarks in the world. And now, pieces of it, once part of the continuous structure, have been scattered, collected, and preserved as individual artifacts. A staircase that once led millions upward is now divided into fragments, each carrying its own unique story. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different series that are not part of this feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.